Welcome back to the most professional StarCraft 2 with the reigning world champion, the Terran in the blue, the Frenchman from Team Liquid. It's Clem. Facing off against the Protoss in the red, Demour, the wall. It's showtime. In a best of 5 Terran versus Protoss grand finals between the unstoppable force and the immovable object. To be awesome, before we get started, you can move at least one of your objects to smash that like button. And maybe even subscribe. Help me count to the algorithm. Jimmy, what are we? Don't make it weird. 1,674 likes on this video, on this cast, and I'll cast another one. And I'll probably do it anyways, because I don't know what else I'd do with my life. But thank you for watching, hopefully. You've had a good day so far. And hopefully it's about to get just a little bit better. As Clem starting things off, scouring for the probe and building a bunker in his own base. A bit more macro-oriented, but that doesn't rule out some macaroni and cheese. With a factory already on the way behind, second gas, and of course, Showtime has Reaper walled off against Clem, and the potential for both emotional and physical damage on that first Reaper. The wall is, well, it makes sense. Even though the Reaper's the first unit built, quite literally, keeping it out of the base is a worthy endeavor. And Clem's going to get in. He's going to see the Twilight Council. But as arguably the first or second best Protoss versus Terran player in the world, yes, including Showtime, I'm sure Clem has a good idea of what he's up against. The Blink is the choice. Well, it hasn't been yet, but it's going to be. Because Blink Stalkers simply do everything you need, and then some extra, sometimes against Terran. Without Blink, you're vulnerable to a whole smorgasbord of shenanigans. Whether it's Widowmine drop, Liberators, Banshees, you have potential run-bys. You don't have the ability to really kite back the bio army. You go for Stargate, and you might get some damage done, but you're still vulnerable to a single Widowmine hit. You go for Robo, and you have no mobility to chase down these hyper-mobile Terran units. The Blink is the happy difference, or the happy medium, between kind of both those things, with the Robo to follow it up. But there's a reason why Blink Stalkers are a staple of Protoss versus Terran. And no matter how many times you blink, you should be able to see that. Meanwhile, Clem, with an old build, but it checks out, a Widowmine drop, an existential threat to the mineral line, if the probes happen to go the wrong direction. Not as critically damaging as it once was. We finally have that little indicator to tell which probes, usually hopefully probes, the Widowmines are going to murder. Makes it a little bit easier to pick out who you want to sacrifice, but the medevac just going straight down the center at 420, blazing directly into the natural. And Blink isn't done. The Widowmine will burrow, retargeting, recalculating, as you're able to delay the lock-on by picking another target while it's still doing that lock. Clem tries to pick it up, but instead, it'll be taken out by the Stalkers, and the medevac has to get away. Cannot be recalled back home. Showtime, the bomb has been defused. And so far, not really struggling at all. Now going to send the Blink Stalkers across the map. During all this, he was taken to third base. That medevac still stuck in the back corner. The beautiful pylons here on pylon. Oh, and the Raven! Just got Edgar Allan Poe'd. Put that in the clips, Jimmy. I don't care if I used it before. So Clem off to a incredibly unfortunate start. The Observer still intact as the Raven was taken out. No real room for scans to deal with it. There's a siege tank in the bank. Clem has set up his bulwark against Blink Stalkers in order to make it difficult for them to get any actual damage done, even if they do decide to have the hubris to blink in. The bunker actually just kiting back, trying to pick off some of the Marines, but Showtime doesn't need to get damage done here. He is not required to pick off a bunch of SCVs. He doesn't have to shave down the Marine count because he's already done so much. The medevac actually made it back home, but shutting down that early aggression has really put map control firmly on his side of things. And the bunker will be broken. The Stalkers will prance away for now. Already setting up some spylons. He knows the map is dark. And oftentimes in this matchup, it's certainly full of Terrans. So he's setting up literally a perimeter of pylons to be able to spot for this. An Observer going out. Showtime all about, well, He's not nicknamed the Wall because he's passive, but because his defenses are so incredibly strong and usually proactive. Nothing's more proactive than murdering your opponent in their own base. All right? Preemptive defense. Has that left side locked down, but Clem, as always, a danger. Observer definitely spotted here. Stims just a few Marines. Scans, takes it out immediately. But the job is done. Did he spot the other one?
Research complete.
Either he did and doesn't have the... I don't think he has the energy for scan. Just now getting it. But this army trundling across the map. Quite a lot of it. 65, 69 army supply against just 60. So a nice advantage there for Clem. Though Showtime got the quick forge and has +1 to match him, which is not always a guarantee. Certainly a quick upgrade there in the grand scheme of things. With the Colossus on the way, extended thermal lance halfway there, and his army is coming together. Clem just trying to keep Showtime from a 4th base. I think he's realized Showtime should have enough to deal with it, but picks up the tanks, gets out of there at the last second. But maybe it was already too late as the charge lot's on the chase. The Stalkers can blink forward, potentially pick off the Medivacs. The one with the tank, he drops him out. Reinforcements trying to salvage the situation. And Showtime starting to get cutted back. Concussive shells is done for those Marauders, helping to mitigate the danger of the charge lots. And Clem is able to make a tactical withdrawal from a desperate situation, as Showtime already had so much army supply. He actually cut his probe count right around 62 or so in order to make sure that he could produce out of all of his gateways. And he's unleashed a huge amount of charge lots on the map, 19 of them. He lost 8 of them in the fight. Extended thermal lance is done, and he's dead even on supply alongside that 4th Nexus. So Showtime now in quite a strong position. Clem cannot really risk moving out of his base without potentially being hunted down and knocked out of the sky or off the ground, or just leaving his base vulnerable to direct attack. Many times Clem relies on having that army supply advantage in order to throw his weight around the map. That way, if you're up 20 supply, you can send out a couple medevacs without being vulnerable at home. But that is not the case here. Showtime is held strong. He's put together the right army, and now is looking to barrel down the door. Here come 3 Colossi. Gonna delay the bunker. Guardian Shield, Force Field, eats a Widowmaw hit. The Bio Army, get him out. Alright, he can't handle this intensity. Get some of the observers out of here, but Showtime still has plenty. The Marauders chasing it down. Showtime decides against pursuing. Ghost Academy Armory on the way. Upgrade's always kind of not an afterthought, but not as high a priority here, as having the army supply and composition is almost always more important than having 1 or 2 more upgrades. Between Colossi, Vikings, Widowmans, and Ghosts, all these things are important to have out. It doesn't matter exactly how much weapons and armor. But charge lots into the main. War Prism recalled out. A bunch of army supply now dragged out of position. The Vikings, I think he'll figure out what happened soon enough, but the Vikings drawn away from the front. Showtime just backs off. Double Raptors on the way. +2 ground weapons and +1 armor. Now completed for Showtime as a fully operational Protoss army is on the field. But Clem is also maxed out. He's got 2-2 in production, so that's going to put him at a slight upgrade disadvantage. But he's putting together the Ghosts and the Vikings, the 2 key parts of every imbalanced breakfast. Making sure you have the ability to wipe out a lot of the effective HP and potentially help against Templar, but Disruptors are the choice. A bit of a rarity against Clem because oh my god, the Disruptor just fires a desk pop right there. And oh wow, the Disruptors immediately showing their weakness. Showtime was microing away from his own Disruptor while he got caught out on the corner, and Clem pounces. He destroys 50 supply in seconds. An absolute rout. A crushing victory for the Frenchman. And Showtime has to back off. A Disruptor shot through the force fields, clips a few of the bio units. But Clem now has a 30 army supply lead. That was a critical mistake and a significant blunder out of Showtime, who's going to come in with the charge lots from each side. Vikings hit the deck. Disruptors being targeted by siege tanks. Managed to back off. Force fields, but who's locked in here with who? Disruptor around the corner. Takes a shot. Another one down the center. Big connection. Finally getting some shots off, but another disruptor coming up. The Vikings on the deck can maybe dodge back into the sky. Tries to save them with the medevacs, which is a bit ironic. Clem keeping the pressure on, but Showtime definitely better on defense than he was stumbling into offense. I can't get over how the first thing the disruptors did was threaten to Dick Cheney him, but charge lots back in the main. Showtime with 5 bases. Got 74 probes and counting. Gonna cut down a few more SCVs, but Clem has definitely retained the momentum. He still has plenty of production. He loses a bit of his economy, but his upgrades are coming online. These units are getting so dangerous, and a fully upgraded bio army requires, you need splash damage. It is not optional. You need disruptors, you need colossi, and ideally you also sprinkle in some Templar, like pistachios on a nut-based trail mix that nobody asked for. The whole thing should be pistachios. That's my point. Unlike Templar, the army should not all be Templar. This analogy doesn't hold up, but I need to make my point clear. And now, something completely different. The actual game. Colossi. Disruptors. Oh, Colossus and Disruptors, for those pedantic ones out there. Shout out to the YouTube comments. And now Colossi. Coloxen, as the plural is. Exactly 4 Colossi is 1 Coloxen. Alright, it is known. You could call that one a plot device, thanks to Day 9. Meanwhile, tank just snapped up. Disruptor's getting dangerously close. Fires off a broadside. Splits the blue sea. And another disruptor from the back threatens to take out the Clem. Be careful with those things. Showtime putting on a demonstration why disruptors definitely need some safety controls. Just as dangerous to the Protoss, if not more so, because they have a bonus damage against shields. There's a reason why they've kind of fallen by the wayside. And again, Showtime is driven back, with Clem taking only superficial damage. Clem, 183 supply. He's only at 65 SCVs, but mules will make up a lot of the difference when it comes to the income. Showtime does have his entire side of the map. We're looking at 6 bases. He's got so much production. 16 gateways. Many of them in the main. And he's slapping down some more. And a shrine to Dark. A Dark Shrine for the Dark Templar. The double Ds of destruction are coming together. When you can't face him head on, maybe blink behind and slice him in the back. At 2 Zeratul. Fusion Core is on the way as Clem techs up towards that tier 3, the fully upgraded starport units, a tiny chance of battlecruisers, a much greater one of advanced ballistics alongside Caduceus reactor. But Clem chasing down the zealots. Showtime playing like a Zerg with his zealotlings all over the place. He can warp in 36 zealots at a time, assuming he had them. No. Where am I getting that math? 36 supply of zealots. 18 gates simultaneously. 18 gates online now. Clem has 8 racks, 1 factory that I think is floating in the corner, and a couple starports. Showtime, well, quantity has a quality all its own. And that's why I beg you to like and subscribe. Building armor on the way. Caduceus reactor. Medevac energy regen. Doubled with that upgrade. While making it one of the most efficient and finally getting the respect it deserves. Fires off a double barrel. Clips a couple marauders. Fadeaway shot. Gets a single ghost, but you know, if you had to pick any unit, that marauder as well just popped on the way out. But some of the Ruptors gonna get caught. Actually going for the ones further on. Some cute micro there out of Clem. The Colossi turn, but the Vikings knock them down. The charge lot's trying to close in, but the bio ball, the sheer damage is too damn high. And he just grinds right through it. The Terran army is tearing him apart. Disruptor shot. Clem leads right into it. Direct hit. Another disruptor. Backs off. And another one. Clem keeps eating 1 or 2 hits right when it seems like he's going to push through. And that means Showtime now has 200 supply with 2,500 minerals in the bank. 1,200 gas. He can rebuild his, well, not his entire army. but pretty quickly. He said he had 3,600 minerals per minute in income, 800 gas. Clem actually more reliably mining gas. But the Bio Army, just gateway units, no matter how well upgraded, are going to be no match for the Ghosts, the Marines, and Marauders. That's just how it is. You need those power units. You need a kicker here somehow. Whether it's the Dark Templar attacking across the map, the Disruptors going for the center mass, the Colossi lancing through. Still no storms. Dark Templar are the only variety so far. Building armor about to complete, and a planetary over to the right flank. A lot of the bio is coming across, and now that Caduceus reactor is done, Clem splits his medevacs between his armies. He does have 12 of them, but he should be able to keep them all intact with the power of those medevacs. Scans the bottom left corner, I think suspecting something. He may have saw some probes transfer, but, well, just in general trying to make sure. At this point, Showtime could expand to every base on the... He's at 5,000 minerals! A Nexus may go down for the first time. Yeah, just pylons so far. In fact, both of them have just been brawling. Almost no buildings have been taken out. Just units so far, but that may change soon. The Ghosts get a cloak off. The Disruptors won't care too much. The Disruptor, where are you going? Oh my, the Disruptors working literally against Showtime. Try to shoot him in the back. Fires one off to the side. All right, some real Looney Tunes action happening now with the Ruptors. 10 Dark Templar and 3 Colossi in production. That is certainly quite a conundrum. Clem going to be dealing with the mass blink DTs with the Disruptors at the front, but he has 138 army supply. Double shot, finds a solid connection in the center mass. Another one clips this side of things, but the Dark Templar eviscerating a base, but the Bio Army trying to jump on Showtime before he can rebuild the Ruptors. The Disruptor count is reset to 0. The Dark Templar will have to be cleaned up. I assume he has enough orbitals here. EMPs actually ends up EMPing his own orbital command, which is something you can do. Not so fun about it. Clem is expanding down the center, which a relatively difficult base to hold, but there's kind of a choke point that maybe the Liberators can work with. He didn't actually get advanced ballistics. Bit of an oversight here out of Clem, especially at this stage of the game, though he's not rolling in that massive bank of minerals and gas that Showtime is currently enjoying. Meanwhile, just some Zealots and Stalkers to make sure that base to the 6 o'clock can never be rebuilt. Showtime snaps up a medevac, strayed a little bit too close. A very tense game to start things off. Showtime with money in the bank, but he can't seem to lay down the killing blow. Whereas Clem is one mediocre fight away from losing any semblance of map control he's been enjoying. But for now, the Bio Army is able to jump the Colossi, knocks down one, charge lots to protect the rest. Scans over the top, making sure no DTs, actually manages to get one of the observers. Clem with another 3 or 4 command centers finishing up, but 4,800 minerals to 200 gas. To 200, rather. Though neither of them have much gas in the bank. EMP's the Nexus to prevent the recall and just soften it up. The main Protoss army, 24 Zealots, 24 Stalkers. Perfect balance in all things. A Scandinavia Vikings for Clem to help knock things down, but the Stalkers doing a great job. The probes transferring into the bio. Showtime losing track of things right now. The planetary will be engaged. It does have building armor, and it's not... Okay, it finally breaks, but the Vikings almost able to take out one of the Colossi in the meantime. 21 probes dead, more charge lots. Showtime expanding down the center. Clem, with a whole lot of Vikings over the top, drops down the mules. This is a rich Vespene base. I've barely seen anyone ever take this. So taking the base... The rich Vespene infusion here. Definitely something both sides could use. But here come the Colossi yet again. Getting a little distracted by the refineries. One of their favorite snacks. Metaphorically, of course. Meanwhile, a massive charge lock counterattack. Leaving him relatively undermanned back at home. As the Bio Army just going for an all-out base trade. Clem gonna try to jump on the gateway units. Knocks down a Colossus. The charge lots are chewing through the depots, but Clem with a much stronger army on the field. Showtime trying to avoid the confrontation. It looks like a Liberator took out 12 probes. Another Nexus taking down the bio. We'll chew through a few more. 46 to 46 workers. Some of the Liberators are coming back home to try to deal with the charge lots. And with the Liberators, the charge lots are going to have a tough time. Showtime not reacting to this. A Venn diagram of freedom will protect the production at the last moment. And Clem is stimming and sprinting towards the top right corner. As the economy for both sides being just gutted completely. Some Stalkers over the top, misses the EMP. 20 SCVs dead, Planetary on the run, another Nexus taken out. Charge lots slicing through a bunch of the orbital commands. Liberators will help to protect. Clem does have the supply lead. He definitely has a better army if he can heal it, but right now a lot of his units struggling to contain themselves as they celebrate their massive victory. Showtime tried to come around the corner, but he didn't have the critical mass of splash damage. He tried to fight with 2 Colossi and a bunch of charge lots against Marauders and Vikings. And Showtime, I feel like we went round and round and round so many times that Clem was the only one able to kind of keep control of the situation. Showtime got almost baited into a base trade, except it's not a base trade if they take yours and still have theirs intact. And the fact that Clem just landed in the top right corner, the former residence of his German counterpart, well, EMPs the DT twice, forces it into the corner, and eventually takes it out. But Clem, I think, has taken a decisive advantage in game number 1. Showtime has let it slip. There were maybe some moments, I can't help but think the Disruptors are double agents, as it seemed like the Disruptors were distracting Showtime or actively forcing him out of position just as much. Yes, they did a lot of damage to Clem, but the only reason Clem got that close is because they almost screwed over Showtime on the other side. They're such a finicky unit to use, and the fact that they can potentially one-shot your entire, pretty much your entire army besides Colossi is certainly not ideal. But Clem re-solidifies his economy. He's got 5 orbital commands. He's dropped. Mule Mountain has been recreated, erupting from the income deficit of the more stable times earlier in this game. And Showtime has rebuilt. He's got 28 charge lots, a few other units, and a dream. But I think Clem might be turning it into a nightmare. Some of the reinforcements cut off. Cloaks the Ghost. I don't think there's any detection. EMPs. Lines up a firing squad of snipes for the Zealots. Knocks down the Colossus. And Showtime is forced to tap it out in game number 1. Clem holds for long enough. 252 Zealots were not enough to break the Clempire. Showtime trying the Disruptors. There's a reason I think that most Protoss have been leaning into the Storm again, as even though Ghosts exist, once again players have realized you don't have to have your entire army in the same place at the same time. I know this is what Classic has taught us. So I don't know if that's Showtime's preferred style at this stage. I've definitely seen him go for the Storm. Maybe just testing the waters. And he was so close, too. But Clem, there's a reason you don't base trade at Terran. 1, their buildings can fly. And 2, some of those flying buildings can drop down super workers and take advantage of any lapse in pressure in order to regrow the economy. But Showtime getting caught a little out of position. And Clem takes game number 1. What a hectic game, though. Everything going wrong for Clem. Pretty much everything that could go wrong in the first 5 or so minutes did. I guess he didn't lose his medevac with the Widow Mines, but he killed like 1 or 2 probes. Lost the Raven immediately. Ended up a late expand, lower upgrades, but the Disruptor's just not the ticket. I'm laying it all on the Disruptors here. All right. Should have been a Reaver. Okay. Your older brother was a Reaver. Okay, and he was useful. Sorry, Mom. Yeah. You should be. Maybe some of the disruptors are suffering from self-esteem issues, and that's why they lash out. Impossible to tell. Thank you, Jimmy. Still, though, I don't think, I think Showtime, if he gets into that position again, has a very real chance to take the game. Clem, even though the early game went sideways, then a few breaks in his favor kept him going. There's a very real possibility that if Showtime's able to get even one disruptor hit on Clem's side of the map, the game just ends. Especially with Clem playing. So, we will see. First Reaper. Interestingly, scouting around for proxies and probes. Consistently so far. Gonna pop up. Actually builds the Twilight Council at the natural. Hallucinated Phoenix Scout will go across the map. That energy recharge on the sentry. Slapping 100 energy in there once every minute. And did he spot the Twilight? He did not. But it is almost implied. But it's not guaranteed. It's very hard to go for a Stargate when you've already gone for a sentry. That's 100 gas on the sentry. Stargate's another 150. All right, the math doesn't add up. It's very likely blank, and you can tell Clem really trying to get that info. Oh, and he spots it. All right. He literally comes in, takes a look around, refuses to elaborate further, and just leaves. But he got what he wanted. He spotted the Twilight Council. But through all the fire and fury, we slow things down. Is it going to be another Widowmine drop? And yeah, with the World Cup coming up very soon, this might be one of the last times I can clickbait calling Clem the world champion. I mean, it's true. And I think he has a very, possibly the best chance to be the world champion again. But by no means a guarantee. So, he will always be a world champion. But will he be the world champion? That's the question. And you'll get all the highlights, possibly pretty much all the games here in your preferred once-a-day format. And by once a day, I mean once every... Oh my, again. The medevac goes down, which is arguably better than killing the Widowmines. As without the medevac to ferry them around, the Widow... Aren't Reapers the worst? Like and subscribe if you agree. Widowmines try to come in, but yeah. So we're going to... I'm going to try to avoid spoilers for the most part for the World Cup. It's going to be mostly impossible, but I'll try not to say this guy won the World Championship 6 hours after it happened. So, even though you might have some idea, we're going to at least have an anti-spoiler policy, ideally for a couple days. That's how it's gonna go. So, you might not be safe if you're watching and looking at the comments. I know they have a tendency to be troublesome, but we'll try. We'll see. But it's about good games for the fans. Games that go sideways so quickly, like the Blinkstalkers getting in and denying stim, but getting stuck, trapped in the Citizen's Arrest, the SCVs in the back. And I don't think a recall is a realistic possibility here. You just end up losing more than if he just fought normally. Don't do it. There's nothing I hate more than a mediocre recall. Still mediocre. I still didn't like it. Here comes another auto turret. Clem slides around again, trying to get some damage done. Target fires the probes. And what's the end result? Advantage to Showtime. 62 to 47 workers. Even though Clem killed some probes, it's 3 base to 2. Showtime, with an incredibly quick third, will buffer his economy and find himself in quite a comfortable position going forward. Is that a Widow Mine? I think so. Yeah, tried to scamper in those Widow Mines from the abandoned drop earlier. Probe being sent out to put up the Spylons becomes the Spylon itself. Raven still anchored at the back. 3 Stalkers staring it down. The main army. Clem joining up. Extended thermal lance. +1 attack. Charge. All on the way. Showtime. With a solid economy and good production. Clem, not sure how much of an opportunity he has to actually exploit this. A drop is risky at best with Blink Stalkers on the field. Colossi are more than enough, especially considering Clem doesn't have combat shield. Severely delayed by the fact that he got his stim sniped originally, so that tech lab time now quite dicey. Sending another probe out, serving the same purpose as the previous one, to watch for Clem's army out of the map, because robo time is so precious. Time on that robotics facility to build Colossi. He doesn't even have an observer, instead relying on zealots and probes in order to scout. Knocks out the breadcrumbs of Widow Mines. We'll keep him busy for now. The Raven is still in the corner. There's a shield battery to help mitigate potential damage. A couple of auto turrets could take it out, but that's a whole process. I'm just going to try to avoid it, but there's a shield battery in each mineral line. And Clem with the 3rd base, and now is taking the supply lead, at least to an extent. Blinks out of the mine. Auto turrets trying to target down. They can actually burn through the damage. But the Colossi extended thermal lance is done, and I'm right there with them. So, charge lance in position. +1 attack for either side, though. Armor about to complete for Clem. Combat shield a few seconds off. Vikings over the top. 1 Colossus hitting the orbital command, because of course it is. The oversized squirrels they are. A few Marines slide by the force fields, but doing a great job of funneling them into the Colossi. And through the fire and the flames, they're almost unable to carry on. Another auto turret. Clem. Now he drives it back. Showtime. Maneuvers around. Another Widow Mine. Just constantly scampering out. Wait, what was that? Was there a Widow Mine down there? I guess so. Oh no, the War Prism! Not an ideal spot. Gets knocked down immediately. The Bio Army grinding through so many charge lots, and again, Showtime called the wall, not the spear. He breaks on Clem's army. The deflection field will somewhat delay the pursuit, but again, Showtime attacks in, and again, Clem slaps it down and gains a 30 supply lead. What a near-pure bioforce. So many Marauders. A whole bunch of Marines. +2 ground weapons is now done for Showtime, giving him an advantage for at least a time. We'll see what he has to show for it at the end. Raven is still alive. And Planetary Fortress nearly completed at the 4th base. What am I watching? An auto turret? Oh, disruptors are on the way. The double Ds. He's going to go for it. And disruptors, again, can be incredible. But they're, in every sense of the word, hit and miss. He's not leaning on those Templar. Disruptors are arguably easier to control than Templar alongside the army, because you have a few things to do as a Protoss while you're microing. Guardian Shield, Blink, Charge Lot Positioning, Warpins, Disruptor Shots if you have it Storm. In this case, there's no Oracles, but there's a wide array of very different actions you have to take at this level. Oh, hallucinated Probe Scouts. I love it. One of the most energy efficient ways to scout, especially when you're really desperately trying to avoid going observers. And it's not like he doesn't want observers. He wants to use every second on that robo to build units to deal with Clem. And here we go. Disruptor pop, but drawn into the War Prism. He saves it for now. The Disruptors are spotted. 2 ghosts on the way. 3 more command centers for Clem. Raven still going. Gateway count up to 12. Dark Shrine is on the way. That bio ball just rolling across the map. Hallucinated Phoenix knocked out of the sky. A dozen Vikings overhead. Really leading into the Vikings. Of course, knocking out Prisms as well as Colossi is a huge part of dealing with this composition, but Clem is completely out of position now. Certainly not expecting the Protoss army here. Showtime may be able to get the 3rd base before Clem reacts, though. Showtime just settles for taking out a Whittle Mine and scouting with Disruptor shots. Clem moving into position. He's bringing the army up at the Disruptor. Catches the front line. Couple Ruptors going to be taken out. Colossi around the side, getting some massive hits on the Marines, though. Keeps both of them alive. All 3, rather. One of them needs to be careful not to step on any stray Legos. Big swipes on the Marines, soften things up. Fusion Core is on the way. And we saw what efficient use Clem made of those, especially Caduceus Reactor Medevacs. And now, wow, I don't know if I've ever seen both Templar upgrades being upgraded simultaneously. The Dark Shrine with DT Blink, and the Templar Archives with Psionic Storm. So, bringing in the full Templar complement here. Embracing both Dark and High Templar. He's also filling in all the other upgrades. We're getting War Prism speed, +1 shield. He's already got +2 armor on the ground. Showtime may not have succeeded in attacking forward, but now he has pretty much every form of splash damage. He's got Disruptors, he's got the Templar, he's got the Colossi. He can eventually make Archons. Clem taking down the rocks down the center, which I think most players just kind of forget exist. They have a tendency to do that. Like, mid-map rocks sometimes just stay there the whole game, even if there's nothing else to be done, as they feel like part of the map. A terrain feature, rather than something you can deal with. Meanwhile, the charge lots are taken down. He throws out a snipe. Vikings in position, but the Templar are revealed. And now here we go. How does Showtime master this Hogwarts-level spell casting? The Colossi on the chase. The Storm, a great historical and physical counter to the Vikings. And a lot of the Storm's way off the mark. The Disruptor's just kind of thrown out there. And this slam poetry version of spell casting is coming up short so far. He loses the Colossi. The Storms were scattered. And, well, Showtime expanding aggressively. It's going to be like 10 Nexi. He's taking the mixed gold base. He's even taking Clem's 9 o'clock base here. But Clem has more money in the bank. He's got Liberators with advanced ballistics in production. How many charge lots? There are 41 charge lots. He's actually... Was that on purpose? See some mules dropping? But another incredibly high economy game with very dangerous armies. Showtime has, well, the Colossi just too tall and too much of a target. He stripped them out of the composition, has not rebuilt them. Instead, a whole bunch of cannons. The main army, the Disruptor's in position, fires off a shot, clips a ghost down the center. Storm and Disruptors, a double coating. EMPs on the Zealots, but they're less affected. They have less shields than HP. Zealots with 100 HP and 50 shields, not as vulnerable to the potential damage or effective damage of EMP. And they have 1 base armor. So add that on to 2 more. Gives you a lot of damage reduction. More storms. Templar sniped right through the fancy cloak that was promised it would protect it. And Showtime is just consuming the map. Clem unable to really make a dent here. Not entirely sure. Well, Clem has so much money in the bank. And I'm not talking about his prize winnings. Like, Liberators sieging up will pick off some of the probes. A Stargate is done. As Showtime is getting a Phoenix or 2, which will eventually deal with these Liberators. Disruptor shots. It's such a, like, the armies are so dangerous to each other. Either player could win a fight in 3 seconds. It might not end in 3 seconds, but they could win the fight by that point. To the point where the other is going to get crushed. The DTs and the Archon ushering them in, easily EMP'd and scanned. The fact that Showtime's mining at all from this base, he's mining from both sides. Clem just tearing through. There's enough for a recall. Doesn't look like he's going for it, just warps in some more charge slots, trying to fight the main army. Venn diagram of freedom with the Liberators. Ooh, force field's pretty good. But now funneling the Zealots into the Liberators, less ideal. Another wave of charge lots is warped in as the Nexus goes down. Meanwhile, trying to jump the army. The Vikings over the top. Bio army microing back. Storms on the Liberators. Wades through them. Vikings kiting. Knocks down the Colossi, which were re-added into the composition. But Showtime with so many charge lots. EMP not enough to stop them for now. A Disruptor joins up with the army. And on the right flank as well. There's not... building armor is not completed. No high-sec auto tracking. The Planetary will be cut to pieces. The charge lot's already taking it out. And Showtime swarming the field with the Zealotlings right now. Vikings hit the deck. Disruptor shot. Actually targeted down, as Vikings are pretty good on the ground, even against Disruptors. Clem is stabilizing, and he certainly has the money to do so. But he has lost several mining locations, and Showtime has rebuilt. A Viking is lifted by a Phoenix, which is the peak of irony. Now the Liberators trying to pick off, but easily targeted down by the Stalkers, while the Zealots just swarm the field. And Clem, with 7k in the bank, but unable to really retake the field. Showtime doing a great job of just locking things down. He's rebuilding the Nexus at the 3 o'clock. He's still mining from the 9. And the production is not fast enough. Clem is not on top of it. Rebuilding another round of Liberators. Doesn't have that much gas in the bank. Adding in the Marines as well, of which he needs plenty. Here comes some more Colossi. Showtime really just sending every unit across the map. He's back up to 200 supply. EMPs. So much of Clem's army is in medevacs. He's got 10 medevacs and only 10 bio units apiece, including Ghost, though. Another wave of charge lots just sprinting in. Knocks down another orbital command. And Showtime holding on to the bases he grabbed on the corners while keeping Clem at bay. The sheer weight of macro here. The amount of units Showtime's putting on the field. And Clem is driven back yet again. The Stalkers blink over, knock down some more of the medevacs. Chasing down the critical mass of bio. And that's it. GGWP. And yeah, maybe Clem had some more in the tank. But Showtime is still... It's not like this is all in. Showtime can go again and again and again. And you get the idea. But he's willing to throw so many units away. And he just wears Clem down. And now we're all tied up. Clem filling in some of the gaps while really just having the Templar forcing the issue with Storm. And more aggressively expanding. Yes, even more aggressively expanding. Showtime with a more tempered response. And now, we're equalized at 1-1. A great game. Even Clem acknowledging how great of a game from Showtime. Unable to make any progress. Just constant. I don't know how many gateways at the end. I think it was more than 12. Like 18 or 20. When you have 4,000 minerals a minute. It's a pretty significant number. Alright. Game number 3. The tiebreaker. Showtime keeping up with the world champion so far. Though, still, we saw why he's called the Wall. The first few attacks definitely coming up short. Ends up losing almost a critical mass of units to the point that Clem could come across and win the game. But not quite. Eventually, though, he just kind of creates an inevitability. Though, it wasn't until the base was finally broken, where Clem was pretty much pushed back to his production, that it seemed decisive. Because 1, Terran units are obscenely cost-effective. And 2, Clem is obscenely cost-effective. Clem manages to disengage from the probe, get inside, and shut the door in his face. That probe acting like a horror movie villain there. Like, I'll get you eventually. Why run? It's like, what do you mean they have cell phones and they can call for help? This really ruins the whole horror movie. But they don't have any signal. Of course not. Okay, looks like the plot device is activated. They're too far in the woods. Or something like that. Not sure how we got... Oh, the probe! All the way home. Reaper on the chase. Reaper, more accurate horror movie villain, I think. Wherever you go. You thought you stopped him. But no, he's healed and he's back. You go inside, you climb the stairs, and he jumps in a window. The Reaper, you should fear. Coming straight to VHS at a theater near you. A blockbuster near you. Grandpa. Twilight Count's on the way. A Sentry as well. Twilight before Sentry. I'm kind of keeping track for my own builds. Which means the blink will be slightly delayed, but we'll have a lot more reliable scouting with the energy recharge. Cyclone. Mixing it up. Should be able to shut down the... Well, this is Clem exploiting the close air distance here and potentially anticipating something similar. Though, unfortunately, the Cyclone is immediately scouted. That doesn't necessarily mean it's not going to be effective. Right now, there's only 1 Adept, 1 Stalker, and 1 Sentry. The 3 Musketeers of Protoss. But there's a whole bunch of Terran anger in that medevac. The Warp Gate's opening up. The shield battery's halfway done. Reaper going to try to distract as the most obvious medevac comes in. And without the shield battery, locks onto the Adept here. We'll be able to knock it out. Just going to target some probes. Gets out. Reaper. But Showtime, the Wall. Demour. Has a shield battery in a perfect position to help defend the front. And still re-shield the probes. And both the Cyclone drop as well as the Reaper deflected and defended with ease. Without Blink, it is a bit difficult for the Stalkers to engage the clone. Clem knows about the healing shrine now. Even drops out the Marine so he can heal while he heals. This healing shrine does not have an air blocker. So the only way to heal your Protoss units The Terrans, on the other hand, it's just easier than, you know, contracting out SCVs, dealing with all that red tape. They ask for so many biscuits. Hallucinated Phoenix will spot the medevac making it back home, giving Showtime a bit more leeway to take his third base, get charge started. There is a single uncloaked Banshee, which can be quite a danger. Usually isn't, especially since there are shield batteries in the mineral line, but the threat is there. And now siege tanks coming across the map. That is a surprisingly dangerous army. Unsiege tanks with actually more single target DPS than siege tanks. I know to many Meta League heroes, it feels like you're only allowed to siege up, but no, they're actually great at auto-attacking, but that's not their main goal. Cyclone taken out. The Banshees, oh, 2 Banshees with Cloak. I was completely wrong on everything except the fact he had at least 1 Banshee. As he has 2 Cloaked Banshees just grinding through the shield batteries, saves one of the tanks. Incredible micro out of Clem to start. One of the tanks will siege. Another one decides it wants to die to the Stalkers, potentially. No, it was just bait. All right, I was just baiting masterfully. And, the Banshee, one of them survives. Stalkers blink forward, take out one of the tanks. Another one. And now a kind of an odd position. This goes from, Showtime just completely slaps this down. Wow. This went from a precarious position to a decisive victory in the blink of a Stalker. The only downside here for Showtime, and it's a pretty big one, the economy. He lost he's lost 10 probes. He's actually behind in workers versus Clem, who already has some bio back at home. I think enough to deal with the Stalkers, just barely. 2 Marauders will be dicey. 3 should be enough, especially with the medevacs now. Stim, Combat Shield, and +1 are coming online. So even though Showtime shut this down, he's not going to be able to produce that overwhelming amount of units that can keep Clem at home. This is a huge risk. So I think Showtime realizing this is a possibility or even probability. In fact, he realized it at that moment. Unfortunately, he's just a little bit late. The Banshee at the back and the double medevac in the main, a single pylon. Oh, Artosis. He's targeting the Forge in an exposed position. The Stalkers themselves might not be enough. Even another takes another hit from the mines, and Clem is just piling on the damage. Double Forge has begun, but now Clem really finding an angle to work with, loads up even more medevacs, and now the quad drop in position. 4 medevacs, almost entirely full of units. The Stalkers awkwardly patrolling in a method they definitely didn't practice in the main base. The medevacs, I think, caught a glimpse of those Stalkers, and the Stalkers in turn. Another medevac loaded up. He's just gonna go. The one with less units, he drops right on top. It's raining men. Hallelujah. And now the Stalkers are torn asunder. The charge lot's going to be taken out by the Widow Mines, and while there might be enough charge lots to clean it up, unfortunately, with the Stalkers taken down, there's nothing to knock the medevacs out of the sky, and there's nothing stopping Clem from doing this again, and again, and again. Clem loads up 2 more medevacs and sends them across the map. There's Stalkers in the man. He built a cannon and a shield battery. He built 2 forges and a robotics bay and a much more careful positioning. But Clem just gonna keep prying into the main. Another drop. More base drops than a Skrillex album right now out of Clem as he drops the Widow Mines into the ground as well. Gonna soften up so many of the Widow Mines. The charge lots. The Stalker count not nearly high enough to reliably take this out. The Banshee's still alive. For now. That was true when I started that sentence. But Clem just... the revolving door of medevacs. Or... you know what I meant. Continues Clem did end up losing a lot of supply there. It is 126 to 125. He runs the risk of losing that critical mass. You're now just tipping forward. The Marines, the Marauders, and sniping off the base. Medevacs pick up again, but when you lose momentum on a map like this, the medevacs can just fly circles around you effectively. Oh, he goes to the healing shrine. Even gonna try to keep it alive, though. It may end up costing him. Those few heals may cost him his life. Showtime 2 Colossi. Extended Thermal Lance. 1-1 is done. And Clem does not. Oh, he does have an armory. I take it back. He's getting dangerously close to falling into the trap of almost every Terran who tries this drop-heavy style. Just like his metaphorical father Beyond, every time you do the damage, you're shaving off a lot of your army. You're losing medevacs, you're losing bio, you're losing map control if you don't have enough of them to keep the Protoss back. So even though Clem has done a lot of damage to the infrastructure and taken out a lot of units, Showtime has been focusing on rebuilding back at home, and he's been as efficient as possible under the circumstances. So now with 3 Colossi, an extended Thermal Lance, as well as even upgrades, he has a real chance to push through. Clem 6 Vikings to engage. Not quite enough to reliably take these down, but certainly enough to make them think twice. Two on the way for both sides. Showtime with a bit of Chrono Boost should have the advantage. It felt like Clem was winding up into a pretty decisive victory, but Showtime, the wall, has been patched up. He's got the economy now. He's got the bases to work with. He's, I think, intentionally been light on the probes. Stalkers are patrolling for these drops specifically. $54 to $59 workers. A very tense game. This is significantly lower than your kind of ideal macro economy. But Clem is maxed out. 141 army supply. Showtime's not too far behind at 120. Now 130. Disruptors are on the way. Filing through the Midas choke point. The gold, wow, really just thinning it out like a spaghetti noodle here. The Disruptor tries to clip from the side, comes up empty. Trying to be a little cute with it, immediately gets popped. That's so many charge lots, but it's a whole bunch of bio as well to engage. The Vikings cutting back. We'll be able to knock down several of the Colossi. Though spreading out their damage, not the ideal move. Knocks out 1 Colossus. Clem, the force fields, I'm not sure they were helping Showtime there as they forced the charge lots around the corner, giving some free hits to the bio army. But another Eruptor coming up. This Nexus will be taken down. I take it back. 2 Colossi still intact. Disruptor trying to sneak over to the side, knocking out the Vikings. But that last Colossus already at half HP. Disruptor shot knocks out several Marauders. He held on to it. Showtime building 5 probes at a time. Holding. But the healing shrine brings everything back to full and does it without using the energy on the medevacs. And he comes in for another round. Disruptor down the center. Trying to protect it with some of those units. The Stalkers blink back into the fray. Colossus topples. Reinforcements. Disruptor fadeaway shot. Nothing. More reinforcements cut off. The Nexus itself under fire. And now who's flanking who? The Vikings on the low ground. The Bio Army back in the corner. Disruptors trying to close in. But Clem is just grinding through the charge lots before they can do much. Disruptor gets popped at the last second. Oh no, it's a disaster for Showtime. Clem just cuts through into that position. A bit of a few sips of the healing shrine and a constant drizzle of drops, and Clem is able to take us to match point. A difficult yet decisive game. Both sides really stressed, very clearly so, as we went back and forth. But now, game number 4. Maganatha. Showtime. Honestly, impressive that he was able to bring it back together. But Clem just kept prying him apart. That first massive drop. In the fact Showtime realized it was a probability, but just about 10 seconds. If the Zerg rocks were already dead, or if he had taken them down a little earlier, I think the Stalkers would have been in position to potentially snipe off one of the medevacs. So his instincts were perfect. Just a little slow. So not perfect. But don't be that guy. Alright, nobody likes it. Near perfect. Clem up 2-1. It has not been easy. It has not been quick. But just one more. Showtime Reaper Wallen. I can't help but feel like the disruptors are... It's hard for me to say that even when the disruptors go well, like, you could have been a High Templar, right? The mix of disruptors, Colossi, and High Templar, clearly the winning characteristic of Game 2. That menagerie of splash damage. That makes it so difficult for the Terran to have a direct response before taking an overwhelming amount. Clem? Probe gets tripped up on the corner of the command center. Almost kills off a bloodthirsty probe. Those, electric licks just taking a nice, juicy taste of the SCV. See more of my Dronely fans. All right, Showtime. It's a Stargate game. No, sentries on the way. Even before Twilight. Starport for Clem. Not trying any sort of proxy racks. Just the 1-1-1. The Barracks Factory Starport. Destiny Cloudfish build, as my fever dreams call it. Making sure he has access to all the early game options. A whole wide array. Widowmine will be the follow-up. Scouting Hellion. Energy recharge. I wonder if he waited intentionally. He had the energy. But does he want to wait? I think he wants to wait until Clem is committed to what he's building out of the factory in Starport. If you go before 3 minutes, they won't necessarily have committed to things like a tech lab or no tech lab on the Starport, which certainly narrows down the options. In fact, if he keeps it alive long enough, he may be able to see the medevac come out of the Starport, and that might be the actual intent here. He's trying to... Yes, he gets confirmation of the medevac. Showtime. Knowledge is power. Knowing is half the battle. The other half? The battle. Alien takes the watchtower, at least for a moment. Medevac boosting across the map, and just because he knows it's coming doesn't necessarily mean he can stop it. Interference Matrix, the choice. With a Raven out of Clem. Whoop! Medevac doing a double take there. I can't believe this medevac that he scouted is going to be stopped by stalkers. What? Crazy. Are those map packs? I'm sorry, I was just channeling Diamond Terran. So does invest in a Raven, but decides to cancel interference matrix. I think it was mostly as a fake, just in case of a hallucinated Phoenix coming in. The timing, Showtime did not oblige, but does now have the 3 racks completed. Robotics Bay has begun. Forge as well. It looks like we're going into a straight-up macro game. That medevac kind of put in the corner. Nobody puts medevac in the corner besides stalkers, hallucinated phoenixes, well, literally Clem. But the idea stands. All right, I wanted to be here. This is a great tourist destination. Look, a jungle surrounded by lava. Where can you get that? Okay, nobody can afford a trip to Hawaii. Do you know how far away Earth is? What do you mean Earth is now a jungle surrounded by lava? What happened? Oh, too many people making AI images of Protoss actually winning tournaments? Ah, I don't... Barracks 4 and 5. Our most passive game thus far. Showtime not even bothering with any blink pressure, but instead sitting back and letting Clem come to him, and he's done a great job of keeping constant tabs, constant scouting information. He has not missed a beat on that front. The Raven overhead. Sneaking around the Raven. Well, most of its job just to slap turrets in the mineral line and chuckle in the process, but Blink does he not see? It's just 1 pixel out of vision. The medevac did escape from the clutches. The observer overhead will spot if it comes back in, and the timing is perfect. Clem slaps down an auto turret, gets a second. There's a shield battery that the probes can sip on in order to protect them, at least a bit on the side. Widowmine hit slams into the Zealots. Medevac knocked out of the sky. That extended thermal lance with just... everything's been put together. Both sides have their armies. You got Stim Combat Shield +1 and plenty of medevacs. Colossi with extended thermal lance and the +1 upgrade as well. So, Showtime has all his fixins for the early mid-game. Uses the hallucinated Phoenix to draw out the Widowmine hit and then splashes it all over everyone. Just so they get all... they build up an immunity. Clem retargeting the Widowmine, you can see there. Preventing it from firing and making sure Showtime can't draw it out easily. Well, that's one way. He tries to prairie dog it. Showtime not letting it happen. The charge lot's on the chase. It's just bio here. Where are the Vikings? A couple of them, but a whole bunch of charge lots coming around the corner. Showtime shaves off a bunch of bio for relatively low cost. The Raven just finds its way into the 4th base, somehow killing some probes, despite the fact the base isn't even done. Is Showtime being incredibly efficient with his mining. The charge lot sprinting in. Colossi in position. And, well... a decent amount of Vikings. Healthy chunk. Well, maybe not for the Colossi. 3 Vikings per Colossi is the number to just shut them down. 2 per Colossi is good, but you kind of need bio support then. Not necessarily something you can rely on. But the charge lots in the main, just slicing through the SCVs. The Vikings come back to defend. Showtime Still sharking around, looking for an opportunity. More charge lots in the natural. A lot of SCVs down already. By that I mean 2. I really thought it would be more dramatic, but the number's growing. 6 SCVs. Showtime waiting for the army to commit before he moves into the 3rd. Trying to find an opportunity. Colossi already doing a lot of damage. Disruptor shot from the north side gets a big chunk. Clem looking away for a moment. The Vikings over the top. Possibly knock down 1 Colossus, but the Stalkers will take them out in turn. 16 SCVs dead. Clem plummets. 2. Okay, well, he was ahead on supply when I started the sentence, and it would have sounded dramatic. And I said, Clem plummets to a 5 supply lead. But instead, he's down by 3. But his army supply, clearly, quite comfortable then. Considering Showtime has 15 more probes. He's got a 5th Nexus on the way. The Raven will finally be knocked down. Nevermore. Say the Stalkers, but 2-2 for Clem. Ah yes, the hidden Colossus. Likes being all cozy in the Warp Prism. Warp Prism speed is completed, making it that much easier to maneuver into the main. Factory will be lifted up as a potential scout as it's stripped out of the production. At this point, it's just bio and starport units. Maxed out supply, and the armies will clash yet again. 8 more gates on the way for Showtime as he goes up to 75 probes. The Widow Mine spotted. Clem retargeting, recalculating, retargeting, recalculating. And just completely dancing with the Stalkers, flirting with them. Will I, won't I? And apparently won't, as he's able to prevent them from firing and being dodged by the Stalkers. So many gates. The charge lot's dragging much of the army back to the main, but Clem has a bit of extra weight to throw around, much like your mother. And 6 more gates completing. Not that Showtime necessarily needs them. He's maxed out and bearing down on the 3rd. Charge lots draw out the Widow Mines. The SCVs will be incinerated. The force field's optimistic. The disruptor way off the mark, but the second one finds the center mass. Colossi, more shots. Another one from the north side. Charge lots eviscerating the reinforcements. Vikings hit the deck. Showtime warps in another round, and just when it looked like Clem would hold, instead he taps it out. GGWP. There were more charge lots in the natural during the fight. Showtime just completely overwhelms the army. The disruptor shots going every which way, but the sheer amount of units. Yeah, these charge lots chasing it down. Another round. And the key part is, there's no damage on the other side. The economy is still fully intact. We're going to match point. Showtime ties things up. 2-2. What a game. Showtime just putting on a clinic there. Clem never really getting anything done. Unlike game 1, where everything went wrong for Clem, and then he turned it around, this time everything went wrong, and it continued to do so. So, Jimmy. God, sorry. Please like and subscribe so I can get actual help. Mental, physical, employment, unclear. But we're going to lay lines for match point. In the top right, the current and maybe for the last few days world champion. We have Team Liquid's Clem and a potential new world champion. It's Showtime. I think Showtime an incredible long shot, but he's one of those players who has beat everyone before. All right, he's beaten Cyril, beaten Clem, beaten Hero. But can he do that consistently? Can he beat enough of them back to back? That's the harder part. But Showtime definitely set to be someone who ruins all the predictions, any probably illegal bets, any sort of prediction bracket. I think Showtime can be the wall that stops them in their tracks. We will see, as it's the build yet again. Twilight Council. Sentry first, and then a Twilight to make sure you have access to that hallucinated Phoenix. Reaper will go into the supply closet. Cyclone, the choice yet again. I'm kind of mixing it up between the Widow Mines and the Cyclones. Not sure how much of it is just kind of keeping Showtime on his toes and how much of it is predicting a potential Stargate. Because he didn't see a Twilight when he came in here. And did he see it at the natural? It's going to be charged. 4 games in a row, Showtime has gone for Blink. 4 games in a row, it's going pretty well for him. It hasn't always been perfect, but close enough. And in game number 5 out of 5, Showtime will mix it up completely and opt for the charge lots. What a crazy... Well, it's not the most outlandish, but it's certainly quite a risk. Because if Clem realizes this, he can just sit back and defend. You don't have nearly the utility with charge lots. It's a brute force, run down the enemy, and chop them to pieces. If Clem is on the field trying to deal with Blink Stalkers, which are significantly more fragile, then he will get caught up by the charge lots. But instead, well, we'll see. A siege tank brought along, a bit of an awkward positioning. Gonna go for the Reaper wall, trying to exploit it specifically. Charged in 6 seconds. He actually built a second pylon, potentially predicting exactly this. Charge is done. And before he takes out the pylon, the Stalkers, well, down goes the tank. Cyclone in the main, tries to ferry it up. More Stalkers going to be warped in to try to take out the medevac. Should, no, not quite. Takes it out from the low ground. Shield battery, sips on it with the Stalkers. Try to target down the probes. Not gonna find it. Charge lots clean things up. And Showtime just dismantled that attack. He almost baited Clem into going for the Reaper wall. A masterful bait, if I do say so myself. Quite an enthusiast of such things. And, well, now, and also, my main criticism, now be it addressed, charge lots lend themselves directly into Templar much more easily, as you're not spending nearly as much gas, usually, on Stalkers, though that's not necessarily true. Now, would Blink have helped more in that scenario? Actually, I think the charge lots and the threat of charge lots now is an important part. As, Blink Stalkers are not nearly as scary. They're not going to come across the map. 5, 6 Blink Stalkers, no. That's not a threat. That's a mild annoyance. But the fact that Showtime could have a bunch of charge lots knocking on the door, even worse, a warp prism, is keeping Clem at bay. And he's clearly battening down the hatches. 2 siege tanks. And that may be the space. And a Templar is warped in. Actually targets down the observer with the auto turret, which is a spicy move indeed. Cheeky, cheeky Raven. Storm is halfway done, though. Did he spot the Templar? I don't think so.
This better be good.
Yeah, we'll see. He could use the... Blink is not done. Is Showtime intentionally... He moved the Templar away, but the Raven's going to get into the main. It's going to see the Templar archives. So... the element of surprise. Viking hits the deck. Actually, 2 shots probes. Viking not that surprisingly dangerous, pillaging enemy workers. Yeah, get him. Yeah, get some. Okay. Clem. Sending it across the map. This is a bit of a dicey endeavor. There are 2 Templar in that prism. He's gonna drop it out of the storms are cataclysmic. Oh no! It's a disaster for Clem. He loses a third of his army. Another third in autumn colors, and the other third is panicking because everyone else is. Those storms. And the fact that it didn't cost any Templar. He still has the War Prism. The Templar are now going to merge for life. There is no such thing as divorce in the Protoss conclaves. And Protoss live for like 1,000 years, so you better be pretty committed to that idea. You can't just be like, oh, I'm so tired, I might as well get merged. It's like, bro, just wait for some more energy. Get a recharge. It's like, it's on cooldown. Have some patience. Why do you think Archons are so angry? Anyways. Showtime. Warps in another round, but Clem, well entrenched. Look at that Widowmon spread. I can't believe it. It's like the pistachios in the midst of something you really didn't expect to have nuts in it. And a very dangerous one at that. But the Templar in the Prism drops down the storms on the tanks. A bit of a awkward fight, but more storms on the reinforcements. The Stalker's behind, and actually Showtime busts through. It storms on the SCVs, just cutting through the workers. 19 SCVs slaughtered, and he's not done yet. There's more Templar with energy, and Auto Turret is desperate. The Medevac's taken down, and Showtime has done what the Colossi could not. He's broken Clem on his front lawn, and now he's acting like he owns the place. And you know what? I think he does. Showtime may have defeated the World Champion. And I can't help but notice that Clem with a strong GGWP. So, okay, I want to... Great job, Showtime. Incredible victory, great games, and well played. Just like Clem said, all 3 games. I can't help but think that after the last few weeks and the cheeky criticism of myself and some other commentators that I hear exist, of Clem and his more curious end-of-game habits, him typing in all caps, GGWP all 3 games, feels a little spiteful. I might be reading into it too much. But I know if I was still a little passive-aggressive, and but I still wanted to technically be correct, what I would do. It reminds me of when Stefano would lose games. Also a Frenchman, by the way, I'm just saying. He would lose games to strategies he didn't like, and he'd just type, congratulations. Not like at the end of a tournament, mid-match. Congratulations. Like, Well, Showtime wins the series 3-2 and throws into doubt Clem's ability to take down the Protoss in the World Cup. He's been struggling as a Protoss, finding success. Against the Protoss, not so much. So the Achilles heel of many Terrans, including the current world champion. We'll see. And make sure to be right here for all the highlights afterwards. Try not to spoil people in the comments the first few days. We talked about that. But thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed as much as I did. I'll see you next time. If you got the means and motivation, be awesome to check out Patreon or YouTube membership. But I hear liking and subscribing is still free. At least for now. So thank you to our meal tier patrons bringing in the extra minerals. Big Jiggy, Devin, Dor, Kate, Mario, Random Guy, Suit, and everyone. I hope I made your day a little bit better. I hope to see you next time. Good luck. Have fun. Congratulations, Showtime. GGWP. Congratulations. Stay chill.